My name is Bryan Glutting, and I'm the CEO and president of BRY Enterprises. And so my question is, how do I get more from my business and not have to deal with as much chaos as I have to do on a day-to-day basis? And what's the best way for me to learn how to solve some of my problems that seem to keep reoccurring?
Welcome to the Strong in Six podcast. Are you feeling stuck in your business? Every growing business hits the ceiling at some point. Getting stronger in the 6 key components of a successful business will help you break through. I am Sue Hawks. I've been running EOS sessions, being an expert EOS implementer for over 1,000 sessions, and I care deeply about having entrepreneurs win in life. We just heard from Bryan Glutting, the CEO and president of BRY Enterprises. Why are processes key to kicking the chaos out of your business and tackling recurring problems once and for all? Well, when I think of process, I know who I'm going to call. It's Mike Paton. And I've known Paton for quite a while now. And let's just say he's not the most tech savvy person I know.
I do need help making the VCR stop blinking 12, but that's a story for another time.
VCR already told me everything I needed to know.
Well, you never know when you want to watch the original Top Gun in its preferred format.
Welcome, Kris Lindahl, CEO at Kris Lindahl Real Estate. If you haven't seen the billboards in Minnesota, it might be worth a road trip. You'll see them everywhere. Kris, it's a pleasure to meet you. I've heard and read nothing but great things, so it's nice to at least on screen say hello.
Good. Nice to meet you.
So guys, what do we want to get going with? Do you want me to lob a question out?
Yeah, we're talking about process, right?
Yep, we are.
Fire away.
So here's the lobbing question to let you just run with it is, so you project fun and joy on all of the things I would know about Kris Lindahl. So let's be honest. Would you call yourself a process guy?
Yeah, would I call myself a process? That's funny. Here's the lobbying question, right? The curveball to start.
Yeah,
I would actually say yes. I would say the definition of what most people think process is, they think boring, they think accountability. But to get to the point to even create a company, I had to have a process, right? It wasn't that it was documented. I wouldn't say that it was scalable. I wouldn't say that others could understand what was going on in my head, but there was a method to what I was doing. And I think that's a lot of times when organizations are at the sort of beginning of, trying to figure out what the business looks like when they grow up, you have to have some sort of process. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'd go even earlier than that, Kris, and I loved your answer. But when you and I first met almost 10 years ago, Kris helped me sell my house in East Isles. You were 2 years, 3 years into your real estate agent journey. And our first conversation included a lot of really smart discussion around what a seller of a home really needed and how a lot of real estate brokerages and real estate agents weren't really giving the seller of a home what they needed. And so there was already kind of a process. Hey, what Kris was doing is observing the way the world was working and looking for ways to improve how things got done in a way that got better results. And that's natural process orientation. And then as he grew as an agent and then assembled his own team and then, decided he needed to have his own brand and his own brokerage, he kept doing that. And it's exactly what he said, not because he had a process manual and he was rigidly forcing everybody to follow it, but because he was trying to teach other people to do all the things he knew would help them get great results for their clients. And it just so happened that was process, but it was sort of subconscious process orientation.
That process in your head, I've also seen that's what gets people stuck, right? Taking the process from there and getting it to the next level is what very few companies, even just speaking in the industries that I'm a part of, very few can get there.
So let's talk about how Kris defined processes for a minute. It's not boring. It's actually a necessity to begin a business, even if it's hard to define, because it's what allows you to scale, to create consistency. As Kris said, it's about getting that problem out of your head and onto paper. So why does this trip people up so often? We've got to start to simplify and really bring this down to the ground.
We just went through our agent training, right? Which was the most amazing training that you would ever see anywhere. I mean, world class. But the problem was that the agents that were coming in, brand new agents, were so overwhelmed with the amount of information that they couldn't retain anything. And so then simplifying and going, okay, what are the most critical functions of the business that they must do well? And then the training manual and everything we built all comes later. It's not stuff that's not important. And so we're constantly asking questions now. Okay, if we only train on this thing, who are we going to have in the organization, and what process are we going to put in place to overcome the other areas where they might not be proficient yet?
There's a couple of common things I see is the desire that a lot of people have to do process work once and then it's done and you don't ever have to do it again. And that's obviously a myth, right? Like if you're going to run a great business and it's going to continue evolving over time, you got to keep the process cycle going, right? Always looking for ways to simplify, automate, streamline, eliminate unnecessary steps, eliminate redundancies and baton drops, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's a forever thing. And there is some pendulum stuff that happens in there. It's natural to go too far to the process extreme and then come back and strip away too many of the guardrails, and just find your sweet spot over time is a message we try and preach pretty hard.
Yeah, I was just thinking about, as you were saying that, I got a funny story with Angela, our integrator, yesterday. So, you've got the vision side of me and you've got integrator and Angela. And so I call her and I go, hey, I've identified an area where we need improvement. And I'm going to record a video right after I get off the phone with you, and I'm going to deliver it to the entire company. I'm going to have the team put together the plan, because we're already doing most of it. We just got to connect the dots to what we're doing here. And so she's at such an advanced level of dealing with me now. She's like, okay, so what do you need me for then? And I said, actually, and I went back, actually, I don't. I was just letting you know. And so like 5 minutes later in the conversation, she comes back to that again. And she's like, okay, how are we actually going to get this? Like, I get that you're going to be able to get this thing started. And I was like, I knew you were setting me up for that. And I went back, we go back and forth. And so
I like your integrator a lot already.
Yeah. And so it's not, it's like, you can see the opportunities, right? And but with the vision side, like I can get these things started. And there's a bunch of stuff that I could get going quickly with high quick start, but long-term, like, well, how's this going to work? And who's going to hold accountable to this, and this? And it's like, hey, well, let's just focus on one thing at a time. It's like, no, we have to figure out the entire process. And so I thought it was a funny little story as you were saying that.
Common visionary thing is the message is the objective, right? Like all I need to do is deliver the message. Everybody will get the message and then they'll change their behaviors and then we won't have to worry about anything. And I'm on to the next message.
So I'm sure you're all laughing along with Paton and Kris about how Visionaries' assumptions aren't always the key to execution. And this is why integrators are so critical to being able to take this great energy and all the inspiration of the visionary and bring it down to the ground and execute through your organization. It's like visionary Prozac is what an integrator is. Now that's the human component, but then there's the process component that really is the tactical way we help the integrator integrate this system into your business. And that's what makes processes critical for creating accountability, getting your flywheel going, scalability, peace, and consistency. So let's listen to Paton about all of this.
So, in Strategic Coach, Dan Sullivan talks about three kinds of people: the make it up people, the make it real people, and the make it repeatable people. And Kris is the make it up person, and Angela's the make it real person. And he's got a leadership team now who are the make it repeatable people. And the challenge we Hair on Fire visionaries have is not making so much stuff up that the people who make it real and make it repeatable can never catch up with us.
So it's like the visionary perspective versus the integrator perspective. So in a lot of the stuff that we're doing now, from a visionary's perspective, I feel like we're like walking, right? I mean, I feel like we are moving so slow. But what's interesting about this is that the integrator will feel like we're moving really fast.
Yeah.
Like, look at all the stuff we're getting done. Like, we have made so much progress, the last quarter before that, and I'm like, we got to start moving a lot faster. Right. And I recognize moving really fast isn't good either. Right. So a little bit of it is just having fun with it. Like, I realize chaos isn't good for any of it either, but it's interesting how the perspective changes. And when Angela and I meet every week for our visionary integrator meeting, and the things that I bring up, and she's like, but let me show you all the things that we're working on and that we're doing and what it takes to execute on getting the process dialed in. And I'm like, yeah, but there's 40 other opportunities that we have right here. And so it's interesting how you have different perspectives and then how you have to meet in the middle to get it done.
I want to make sure that you heard Kris's point about if you're always getting ready, you're never going to start. You got to begin. Processes help you reach your goals and see the results Paton referenced in the wellness example. So let's now find out how processes help you start to see progress in your business. They're going to help you simplify, focus on the most important actions you can take, and really work from the end result you want backwards.
Those are the choices you have when you're taking two types of people and putting them in important leadership roles. Is are we gonna pick, like, there are some problems that are better solved by a high quick start. Don't worry about the details. Let's just jump in and see what we can fix things. And then there are some problems that need to be fixed methodically by somebody who's very execution oriented. And you guys keep getting better and better at figuring that out.
I think one of the things when you get very strong process orientated leaders, you start getting way too deep on things that really don't drive the business forward or aren't a priority.
So, you got team members in every entrepreneurial leadership team who love detail and thoroughness and complexity, and other team members who that stuff drives them crazy. And so there's almost always a debate going on. And the person who loves complexity is trying to imagine everything being done consistently well every time. And when we teach that you only have one accounting process, you don't have 11 accounting processes, an invoicing process, a financial reporting process, an AP process, an AR process, a blah, 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 blah process. The poor CFO is sitting there saying, well, how am I going to teach everybody who reports to me how to do all the complexities of their job really well? And what they're missing is we're just trying to make choices about how much we throw at people that will get the basics done well. And Kris said this earlier. And so I like to use a personal wellness journey as an example. If you looked in the mirror or stepped on the scale and said, geez, I could lose 25 pounds, you could spend 3 years doing research and figuring out what nutritionists and what nutritional program and what gym and what equipment and what exercise and what personal trainer, all of that, and get all of that all mapped out, and then start your program to go lose 25 pounds. Or you could document 3 things. Hey, maybe I'm going to write down or put in an app everything I eat every day. Maybe I should just exercise for 45 minutes 5 times a week. And maybe I should step on the scale once a week. And if I follow that 3-step process, am I likely to make progress while I'm researching all this other stuff? And when I explain that to the lover of complexity, and I say, I want your team to know the basics by heart, to be able to do the basics without thinking about them, so over time you can coach and mentor all the detail, then they can start to let go of that complexity. And I think both are important. We're not at all saying you don't ever get to the point where every detail is documented. We're just saying at some point you've got to start and get the basics done well.
I've got a real world example that's happening right now inside our organization that I want to share really quick. So we've spent the last 18 months getting things in order. And arguably, you have to take a few steps back before you take steps forward in terms of top line, sales, all of those things. So one of the things that we did for the month of August is said, hey, we're ready now. We have put so much process in place. We've got things dialed in. The month of August, we're going to do more business than we've done ever before. And so we have everyone in the entire company on board that we are going to have the biggest sales month that we have ever had. Everyone's behind it. People are incentivized. Everyone is all on board. No one disagrees that we're ready. And so every single day, everything that we're doing in the company is August is going to be the biggest month that KLRE has ever had. And it's because we spent 18 months. But if at some point you just keep getting ready to get ready to get ready, we got to get more dialed in. We got to get more dialed in. You never really take action, right? And so it's like, hey, are we just going to keep doing the same thing every month? Then we come in, we go, well, let's make this better. Let's make that better. Let's make this better. And finally, when I was talking to Angela, I'm like, we're like ready for this. And it's the same thing that Paton just shared about, weight loss. And there's something you can do now while you're still building and optimizing at the same time.
I can't stress this enough. Got to get this out of your head. Communicate it intentionally and really start working on them. Get started today.
What you're doing when you're building an entrepreneurial company is you're changing the wheels on a moving train.
Yeah.
And when you look around for the maintenance team to do that for you, there is no maintenance team. And so you need to be prepared for that part of the journey too. It's gritty, it's raw, it's scary. And there are many days where it isn't any fun and there's nobody you can blame or no politics you can play or no executive washroom to retreat to get away from that stuff. And I just go back to what we talked about earlier is that Kris is a very inspired visionary leader who has fallen in love with the idea of a high level, simplified approach to process establishment and continuous improvement. And his team is really gelling around that idea. And I think great things can happen when you do that. And great organizations are built when you combine that culture of discipline with a spirit of entrepreneurship, as Jim Collins used to say. So I'm really excited about that.
It's like a different set of muscles to work. And it's muscles that most, visionaries are really weak at. And it reminds me a lot of process. The amount of, you mentioned discipline, the amount of discipline that you have to follow through at a high level on process. And it's painful at times. It really is painful. But the more that you work those muscles, the better that you get, the more patient you become. And that's where we're at in our organization now.
That's awesome. Can I ask you straightforwardly, if you had to say, what are the top 3 to 5 results of process? Like, what have you gotten by having great processes? What are the outcomes?
The big outcome, I think, in the biggest one that I can think of sales related is doing over $2.5 billion in sales in the last 24 months in real estate, right? So at an average sale price of $300,000, right?
That's awesome.
One always asks about the brand and the marketing. That's always what they ask. But no organization can do this type of volume or units without people and process. There's no possible way.
Right.
You can't. I mean, you can put all the most amazing marketing in the world, but you can't deliver. And if you don't deliver, you end up with 1-star reviews. You end up with a poor, consumer experience. And it's sort of a flash in the pan. And so to me, that feels like the biggest one. I think another area where we're still sort of in the middle ground of calling this a massive success. And it's the way that we recruit and the way that we're able to take agents that don't have a background in real estate and scale them up quickly, right? And the process that we've developed there has been unbelievable. And there's obviously things that we still have to refine, but I think that those are the top 2. And then it starts to get into marketing and branding. The process that we have to get feedback from customers, consumers, people in the markets that we serve and create great marketing strategies. A lot of the ideas that we have came on what other people were saying before we created that campaign or that initiative. Just listening, like, what are they saying in email? What are they saying in text message? What are people saying on social media? What are the comments? And so dialing in that information and then creating marketing and branding initiatives around that. And I think too often people don't pay attention to what's in front of them.
When you heard Kris talk about the ripple effect, that's where you build by doing one. And once you get one going, you start to see the impact and it builds momentum, making and carrying through your entire business until you get somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 to 12 core processes to run your business. They don't always take out all the chaos from your business, but they do help you look to specific actions you can change to manage it more efficiently, more effectively, and they solve problems because often it's how we're doing things, and process really changes the how. Now, we're not talking about making giant SOP manuals. We're talking about enough to systemize, not bureaucratize. Thank you to Bryan for the great question and to Paton and Kris for sharing their wisdom with us. Thank you, listener, for taking this on and really hanging in there, because this one isn't the sexiest, but it has an incredible impact. You can learn more at eosworldwide.com. Keep kicking butt and taking names on your journey to your EOS life.